My name is Joe Sherman, and I am history's ghost, come back from a few decades ago here in this illustrious town. And history's ghost, I actually came here initially on Patriots Day in 1945 when I was born in the Alice Beck Day Hospital. Did my schooling here, went to that church over there, the white one, the Congregational Church. Left when I was 18, haven't been back much, but here I am, and I'll explain the history's ghost thing in a few minutes, but you can't forget that 4th of July and the celebration we're at really is a historical event. It's a celebration day, but we're talking about history. History is full of all kinds of currents. Your history right here, being here, I'm history because I'm talking to you. This band's making a little history. It's not just for politicians and big historical events. When I come here now, I can kind of see history sometimes. I see a black bear here hanging from a weighing station in the fall. I was in church over there, and you could see it out the window. We used to do Sunday school, and we even were let out early to go see this bear. And on the other side of the park over there, some of you may even remember a gentleman named George Manchester. He had the last parking spot for a horse-drawn carriage in Lebanon in the 1950s. It's right over there on the corner of West Park Street. We got history all around us. There used to be something called Benton Hill over there. It was lost to urban renewal. There was tenements and bars. It's where a lot of the Milltown people that lived here used to hang out, drink, go to work with their lunch boxes. In Colburn Park right here, a lot of people would like to know, it was once a farm. It was called the Plain. It was a flat place in Lebanon that they put the first meeting hall. That was way back in the late 1700s. So the history of the town, we're at 250, and like I said, back in the 1960s, times are somewhat different, but the park was here, the church was here, the fire station. And history accumulates over time. A lot's happened in those 50 years. But our collective acts, and the reason I like to talk about history is I like to make it more kind of personal on our level. It's what we do, our decisions, it's our, not only our victories, but our failings, it's our victories, it's our defeats. It's all kinds of things that make history. Your history, I'm history, she's history. These children here are going to be making history in the future. And again, this is July 4th. It's kind of like a magical day, and I think we feel that, not only for the good magic, but some of the dark magic. We feel joy, we feel tragedy, we have memories. It's a kind of a Memorial Day. Now, like some of you probably have been here at the Bicentennial, which is 200 years ago. Put on your history hats, and we kind of go back to July 4th, 1961, exactly 50 years ago. Right here in this park, there was a celebration, and we had some real notables here, a couple that were from Lebanon. One was a high school graduate of LHS called Lane Dwinell, had just been governor of New Hampshire, lived right here in Lebanon, went to high school here. Norris Cotton, senator, lived up on Bank Street in the big White House up there. Big deal senator. I know all this. I was 16 years old. 16! Remember when you were 16? Dennis, you remember? Good time. Had a girlfriend. Used to go to the Opera House, sat in the back row, make out. Good time. First time I could drive a car, lived on Church Street down here, had a pink 57 Chevy, brought it to my dad. Used to make him nervous when I took it out, but I took it a lot. And I had a mission, you see, because I had been, a few years ago, about a year and a half before that, I'd been in the high school. The principal came around and he kind of corralled me and he said, Joe, I have an opportunity for you. Uh-oh. I imagined another lawn mowing job like the last one he had given me. The lawn mower was like this, with a real push mower, no engine. He said, the town bicentennial committee wants a youth representative. someone to come back in 50 years as a link to the past. I was 15 years old. 50 years struck me as enough time for all the history of all the towns in all the world to be replayed without an instant's rush. If I concentrated at that time, I could probably have told you the date. And with a real intensity, I could probably even tell you what I did the last week. And since it was April at the time, I knew summer was coming. Baseball, freedom, no school. What do you think of the idea, the principal said. He was growing impatient with me, my unresponsiveness. And I lacked any effective way to tell him, as a teenager, that I was really awed by the idea of coming back someday and being 64 years old in a hallmark of the good old days. My God. Well, what do you say? It seems okay, I guess, I told him. He says, I'll tell them. So a funny thing happened after that. I started thinking about time, that a 16, 15-year-old kid doesn't think about time that much. And I started looking at my parents, both 57 years old, in a little different way. And the prospect of being a sophomore, which was coming up, I couldn't even kind of deal with. I was having all these images of a kind of a distant future in 2011, right now, where I was going to be on a reviewing stand or something and have to be talking about the past. And I was supposed to, I guess, have some wisdom in my head then. I was supposed to know something more than I did at 15. Whoever knows more than they do at 15? Not me, I don't think. But anyway, in the bathroom mirror, I was just starting to shave and stuff, and I had this dream that my beard just grew and grew, and it kind of lapped up on the floor, and I saw my mother come in and get all tangled up in it and trip over. And I woke up, you know, and it was strange. It was kind of, I had this obligation and this mission, but I was affected me kind of weirdly. And the first meeting came up, and it was over there on this corner of Court Street and North Park, above the Mascoma Savings Bank. And the night of this meeting, it was raining cats and dogs. I'll never forget. I got there a little early. I ducked through. I tried to open the door. It was locked. Damn. So I kind of went under a corner of a building over there, and like I said, it was pouring. I could hardly see the trees in the park. And then there used to be a lot of elm trees here. It was beautiful. It was before that Dutch elm disease killed them all. Big hanging trees like parachutes with Baltimore Orioles nests in them. Huge puddles of shade underneath. They were beautiful. And they were kind of in the dark, and I saw the church and the brick fire station in the street that I came up, and I just come by the fire station. Guys were in there playing cards like they usually were. And then I heard a key. Somebody came by, kind of bent over. I heard a keychain. Guy went in. I ducked my head and run through the rain and went in, and lo and behold, I was on the Bicentennial Committee. Now, we started to have all these meetings. It went like for a year and a half, and I mean, we're talking old people, adults. I was with people with gray hair, a bunch of them, 7, 8. They changed some. Mostly I just sat and listened, but it wasn't easy. And one of the things that I always remembered in my head was the word bicentennial. I thought, why don't we just call it the 200th birthday of the town? And even now it's the sesquibicentennial. It's one of the problems with history. Why do we need a 7-syllable word for the celebration? It's the 250th birthday. Anyway, I was the kid at these meetings, and I mainly just listened. And by the time 1961 rolled around, like I said, we had a full calendar of events. Starting 1961, right over there in the Hotel Rogers, there was a ball, a New Year's ball to kick off the bicentennial. We had events in the year. People in the stores here often dressed in costume to take care of people. This was before the notorious fire. And on the 4th of July, it was a huge day. But it was some entertainment, but it was more history. Like, we're going to have great music here. We've had great music all day. But The three songs I remember from July 4th then were by the Rotary Club Choir. Lebanon the Beautiful, God Bless America, Until We Meet Again. The master of ceremonies of the event there was a gentleman named Dr. Arthur Burnham. Lived right up here off School Street. He'd been a doctor here for 42 years, and I had a kind of a unique relationship with Dr. Burnham, because when I was 7 years old, looking around here, maybe I was 8. I see a kid over there looks about 8. I was playing football down on Water Street. A friend of mine, I had the ball. He came up underneath me, hit me right underneath the chin. I had my tongue out, cut my tongue off. All except the middle. Mouth full of blood, crying, my friends holding my hand. They wrapped my tongue up in a towel, and thankfully the middle of it was still together. Shot me up to Dr. Burnham, put the needle in, started stitching. Otherwise, I don't think I'd probably be talking so good. He was the master of ceremonies, quite a character. Like I said, we had the governor here. We had Norris Cotton. The governor talked about Lebanon industries and businesses. Industries, obviously, were mainly the woolen mills and the tannery. And Norris Cotton talked about Lebanon, past, present, and future. And they were talking about history, and history as a word is kind of interesting. It's his story. H-I-S, story, S-T-O-R-Y, his story. History is made up of your stories, all of us, collectively. That's what history is. So remember your stories. Cherish them, share them, celebrate them on the 4th of July and other days. Her stories, his stories, that's history. In my boyhood, the story here was French-Canadian Milltown. This was a place settled by the English, but in the mid-20th century, it was French big time. We're talking about the Poiriers, the Boisverts, the Ducharmes, the Lamontaignes, the Bellevances, a lot of French people, big French church. We had a Catholic church, big Catholic school. Mill workers, a lot of them had come down here, had French roots from Canada. A lot of lunch pails, people walking back and forth. Sports were a big deal. You like to play sports here. We had great sports programs with the CCB. It was always a sporting town. But we were Milltown boys, my friends. We were rough kids. We were tough. We were stupid at times. We were funny. We were happy, and often we were mean. But remember this always. The boy is the father of the man. Boyhood in Lebanon, when I was here, was something only a king could bestow on his son, or a queen on her daughter. This was one hell of a good town. And it gave me an education that's kind of lasted me my whole life, and also got me very interested in history. It's been a theme of my life since then. Here's a few things I learned in this great mill town. Never rat on your buddies. Always talk to the girl reading the book. Open the door for others. Don't be afraid to shoot the ball. Some rules are meant to be broken. Of course, history is not all boyhood in these kind of stories. It's not all fun. It's not just the 4th of July, the frosting on the cake, the fireworks tonight, of which I hope all of you go to over on Storrs Hill. History has all kinds of dark chapters, as we know. Otherwise, why would we love the light ones? Couple events from the town history. I hope you all pick up this nutshell. This is Lebanon's history. It's great little things in here. One of them, a piece of history I'd like to refer to, is that in 1964, as you probably know, most of this town burned down. The woolen mills were collapsing and they were closing. That mill town that I knew, it was disappearing. The sounds of looms at night, making their pounding wood sounds, was over. But going way back, there's always been sad moments. Probably the first sad moment it's mentioned in this nutshell was when a young man named Michael Johnson, he was canoeing on the Connecticut River, canoe flipped and he drowned. He was buried on some place called Dead Man Island in the Connecticut River. Maybe some of you have been there. Another little history bit in this nutshell book that very few of you may not know. Between 1778 and 1782, right after the Revolutionary War, Lebanon seceded from New Hampshire and joined Vermont. A number of these towns did. They had it with New Hampshire. They joined Vermont for 4 years. And then they came back, obviously. And in 1810, one more little neat history bit, there were some grave robberies in Lebanon. The town, talk about respect for your ancestors and the deceased. Grave robbery in 1810, you got a fine of $2,000 in a time when $1 probably would last you a week. You got a public whipping, 39 lashes, or if you didn't like that, you could take 2 years in jail. It's a different time. Today, in Lebanon, I'm told that though the mill towns went out and there was tough economics time, the town is kind of revived. They tell me it's a good place still. It's a great place to live. It certainly seems that to me. I'm glad to hear that. But don't forget your history. History in our time, unfortunately, often gets shortchanged. It doesn't get the attention it deserves and needs. And a town that forgets its history forgets its heart, forgets where it came from, forgets the roots and growth of its character. And a town without character is certainly not what Lebanon was when I grew up here. Lebanon oozed character. Characters are history. Characters make history. And I just want to allude to one character before I wrap this up, a gentleman in this town that a lot of people knew and loved. His name was Pat Walsh. He ran the CCB when I was a boy, and kids loved him. He was a man who made a boy, me, feel special. When you're a boy, 16-year-old boy feeling special is a pretty darn good thing. And he was great at that. And I think Lebanon was always good at that. Making kids feel special. It's a special place for them. And that's powerful. You should be proud of that. But finally, again, I said history's having a tough go for a lot of people. They say, well, so what? You say, I'm too busy for characters. I got a life to live. So what's history good for these days, you'd say? I can't make any money out of it. It won't stand still. It's always moving around. It's told by the winners. Now, do I like a winner? No, I'm history's ghost here. Come to talk to you a little bit about the past. A ghost of history from one of the best towns in America. Take care of your town. Take care of your history, my friends. You take care of it. It'll never desert you. So this has sort of been my history's ghost report to the town, to my bicentennial committee associates. I'm pleased to have shared time with them 50 years ago, and I'd like to say that I think they would like to be here today to see the Veterans Building open, go through the Carter Home. At the same time, they might be a little dismayed by the fact that we don't have a full calendar of history events this time around, although the Recreation Department has done its best and done a good job. History needs to be up close to people's hearts and up front, celebrated. A lack of focus on Lebanon's marvelous history is not a very good way to go. But I'm sure the spirits of my bicentennial committee people were here with me. Right now, I want to recognize them first. We're going to have a drum roll from our drummer. We had William M. Berry was the chairman. Mrs. Robert C. Elliott was the assistant chairman. Mrs. Kenneth Smith was the secretary. Robert H. Levitt was the historian. Mrs. Paul T. McNamara was on the committee. Mrs. William T. Plummer Mr. Milton Norton, Dr. R.J. Coulard, and the kid, c'est moi, George D. Sherman, Jr. Enjoy the 4th, folks. Take care of your history. Take care of your town.